Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. I'm Mark Stein, Thrive founder and your podcast host. We're creating sustainable, inclusive, and multi-generational residential communities. Our mission is to combat the epidemic of isolation, revitalize communities, and help others discover the many benefits of engaged community living by offering unique and ecologically sustainable co-living options. In this podcast series, join us as we discuss co-living, in addition to bringing you interesting people from around the world who are doing cool things to expand your knowledge and satisfy your curiosity. Through this podcast, learn more about our concept and see how Thrive co-living communities will bring together people from all walks of life who want to enjoy the best of independent and group living. To find out more about us, please visit our website at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. Thanks for watching and enjoy the podcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. Glad to have you back and glad to welcome Jeff Crittenden, who is the owner of Oasis Senior Advisors in Louisville, Kentucky, a service provider for seniors to help get them what they need at whatever stage of growth and development, how we'll speak euphemistically. But usually it's seniors that are on decline and in need of services. So Jeff, welcome and thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you, Mark, for the invite. I'm very honored to be part of this. This is really a neat thing that you're doing.
Great. Well, we really want to highlight people that are doing cool things, that are doing helpful things for the communities. And so you definitely fit in that. So talk a little bit about the services that you provide. And this is an industry, I guess it's senior care. Well, how would you characterize the broader industry?
Well, it's senior housing. The one thing that we specialize in is we want to educate families on a couple of senior housings that we have. We have independent living, that is 55 plus. That is what it says. It is independent living. It's living in an apartment that you can still bring your car. You have your own things, but you're living with people your age and you're living independently. There are some benefits to some independent living. There's 2 meals a day. Sometimes there's 3 meals a day. You are hanging out with the people in the community through activities, through excursions. So that's where a lot of people who maybe get tired of paying taxes on their home, maybe they don't want to cut grass, maybe they're isolated in their home, but some of them can be still working when you're in independent living. Then we have what I think everybody knows is assistant living. Assistant living is an apartment setting with what I call a supporting cast around that individual. If someone is having problems bathing or needs help grooming, maybe needs help with physical therapy, maybe just needs 3 meals a day. They need that socialization, but they are maybe afraid to fall. Maybe they just need a little bit of help with their medications. We can talk about the options when it comes to assistant living. Here in Kentucky, we have another type of assistant living, which provides those same services that I just described, but it's more of a medical model to where we have actually nurses that are in the building. If I took you into a personal care and an assistant living here in Louisville, Kentucky, you really wouldn't know the difference. But it's what they can provide that senior with. If somebody is a type 2 diabetic, needs to have a sliding scale or help with their insulin, they have maybe 15 medications, they just can't give those to themselves. They don't understand the care plan of that medication. We can have a med tech that's giving that type of medication. The other thing that we do is we help families understand memory care. Memory care is inside of those two type of buildings. They are just on maybe the back end of that building. Those are residents that have a cognitive type of deficiency, which we call dementia. A lot of people look at that as being Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is part of that umbrella. Those type of patients or / residents, they are having problems maybe remembering where they are. They have confusion. They need that type of routine to where we are engaged into an activity of per se, we're going to get up in the morning. We're going to have breakfast with everybody that's in secured memory care. We're going to do exercise. We're going to do maybe a brain game. So we're going to keep that individual engaged, and we're going to put more eyes on them throughout the day. We have patients that are memory care that go through several stages throughout their journey when it comes to dementia. And we can actually stimulate their mind. We can get them the nutrition. We can get the help that they need when it comes to what we call redirecting. If someone wants to go left, we can redirect them. No, we need to go right. And those are very highly trained individuals who are managing that type of part of the community, which we call memory care. So what I do for a living is we have a 5-step process. We meet with you. That is number one. We want to sit down. We want to understand where that individual is. We want to identify a lot of areas. We want to identify what type of care are you giving this individual. We want to know how many medications are they taking. Are they taking those correctly? When I mean correctly is, are we taking them with the right time, with the right food? What other things are going on with our care, which we call those activities of daily living, and those are what we call ADLs. Those are going to consist of dressing, bathing, transferring, toileting. And so we identify those particular things with that family. Or like today, I got a call from a lady that is just gotten out of rehab. She is having a hard time, and I'm going to meet with her on a phone call, and I'm going to talk to her, and we're going to go into this in depth. What type of problems is she having? And we're going to give her options. Is maybe going into a respite care, in-home care, or are we going to look at other options, maybe going into an assisted living? So those are the conversations. That's the first part of our process. The other part of the process is we keep families private. We do not share email. We do not share phone numbers with the communities. We're going to match that particular individual and that family in 3 areas: zip code, how far they want mom and dad. We're going to look at personal finances. We're not going deep into your personal finances, but we want to kind of come up with a budget, because every community has certain prices. We're going to educate that family on what things cost. A lot of people get confused when they look at a magazine and they look at prices and they go, oh, it's $2,900. Well, yeah, that room, that space that we put their things are and can be $2,900, but people don't understand that we have a level of care. That level of care can consist of one level of care could be medication management. That's a cost. We have a level 1 type of level, and that could be a cost. Levels of care, if you identify that, is how much time are we spending with that individual? How much time are we spending bathing? How much time are we spending dressing? Are we actually rolling them down to the dining room? What are we doing with that individual? So that level of care is done by the community, and that's the reason why we tour with you. We are advocates for that family or that individual, and we're going to discuss those. We also provide what we call a personal list. We're very strategic on what we send you, and what we can send you through email is pictures of the community. You're going to take a look at their amenities. Then we're going to get back together and you're going to go, you know what? I want to tour A and C community. I set up those tours. We get the right time. We get the right appointment to spend time with that community so they can educate you on their community. And I am there with you. What I say, I'm kind of filling in the pieces, helping you through that process because it's overwhelming. You need that extra set of eyes. I always tell family, if you have another family member that's engaged and wants to be involved, absolutely have that second person that's part of your family. You should not do this alone. It's very complicated. It's very detailed. I used to be a project manager, so I use my project management hat. Is if you choose a community, I understand the project of moving you in. So we're going to provide that for you. And once again, I set up the community tours. Once we find that right community, we're going to make transition easy. I have so many resources from downsizing your home, moving those materials to the community at a very, basically it's gosh, I just kind of lost my train of thoughts there, at a very low cost. We're going to look at the date. We're going to look at how we get into a community, because getting in communities in certain areas can be a little bit different than just knocking on the door. And so we've got to get paperwork. We've got to do the information. So I get you prepared for all that. We are HIPAA compliant in our system. Again, we're going to keep your information private. We will send what is actually going on with mom to the community, but we're not going to send your private information. So that's really our process. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love guiding people. If you're calling me, I'm not going to put high pressure on you. I'm going to let you know if you can afford it or not. We're going to do math. And we're going to get you to the right resource that you need. If you would like to stay home, and that's what your wishes are, then we're going to try to help you find that in-home care resource. If you want to understand different options to how to pay for it, we have some of those options that we can talk to you about. I really believe in elder attorneys. I believe that planning is the best way to go. Where if you don't have a will, or you don't have a POA, or what we call a durable POA, which is a healthcare part of that POA, we're going to set you with an elder attorney. We're going to have you talk to them. You're going to understand Medicaid if it ever comes down. So those resources are really important as we go through the process. And that's where I think that I set myself different among my competitors, because we're going to slowly walk down this road, but we can go at your speed. I tell my clients, you're driving the ship. I've got a map for you. And we're going to use that map to go to the right location and the right resource.
So let me ask you this. There are some communities that have the whole spectrum of levels of care, all the way from independent on the same campus, so that people can transition as needed, and even move back and forth between levels of independence and care?
You see a lot of those, which we call continuous retirement communities. Yes, we have those. A lot of them are in Florida. Those kind of go from independent, maybe a patio home, into going to a more of a traditional apartment Then we're going to go into more of a care type. And then we're going to go into more of a, if we need memory care. And what you're talking is we're going to go into more of a long-term care type of skilled and nursing home. Louisville has some of those, but we don't have an abundance of them.
So you might be moving in between, if you're not ready for any sort of even assisted care, you may start out in one community that's more independent senior living and then move to another campus to get that.
Yeah, we just, I'm not going to say we don't do a good job. I think Louisville does a great job, but those retirement communities that we're talking about, they're very expensive. It's very expensive to understand nursing home and the regulation that goes behind that. It's can be expensive to run what we call an assisted living. We want to be an expert at one of those. Assisted living buildings are very educated on what they do. A lot of our assisted livings you can age in place. I think a personal care type of community, you can age in place. But most of my clients say, what happens if I run out of money? That's the reason why we talk to an elder attorney. That's the reason why we need to understand your finances. I'll give you an example of what I did about a couple of weeks ago. I had an individual call me, which was the brother of his sister. She lived in Kentucky, down towards Campbellsville University, and she had an event. He and I worked together. He gave me her pension. She used to be a teacher, and we looked at that, and I ended up looking very hard at her personality, what his wishes were, and that was really a concern, is what happens if she ran out of money. Well, she had an abundance of an IRA, but she also had a really good pension, Social Security, and it came up to be $4,000. We ended up finding the perfect place because of what he was concerned about, money. We got her an assisted living / personal care at $3,000. She is way under what she's getting every month. If an individual has $100 instead of a community, because you're getting all these things, 3 meals a day in your care, she's saving $900 per se. She's banking that money. We're not touching the IRA, and she can live there a long time. And that's one thing that I do look at. I do look at their age, and that's the reason why we have these family consultations, because it's like going out and buying a house and not knowing what you can be approved of or what type of money you can put down for. So that's really part of our family consultation, to help you through that.
I used to do some mediation. I still do a little bit here and there, and nothing brings out the deep-seated emotional baggage of families like a parent going into a nursing home or needing extended care. And they either rise to the occasion or they rise to do battle. Can you talk about that a little bit and how you manage that? Because you'll be right in the middle, and those that have the strongest feelings and the strongest emotions will be right there in the chair next to mom or dad. How do you manage that?
Well, a lot of times that when I see that come about in our family consultation, I really kind of take a lot of those things offline. We're going to maybe meet. If we have one family member that's not agreeing with another family member, we're not going to talk about that in front of mom, because we've got to get on the same page. And I think really that is having more education, and having maybe a resource like an elder attorney present, because a lot of them will do free consultations. I think people really get scared about the future because they think that Medicaid is going to take everything that they own. Um, that's not true in some cases. Now, I'm not going to play lawyer on this podcast, but elder lawyers can be your best friend to explain to you about the future that you may need. Basically, we want to hear the party out. If the person is not agreeing about what we're doing, his voice or her voice needs to be heard in a very calm manner. And then we're going to put it towards the individual that is on board and feels like, because there is two sides and we have to compromise on that. A lot of times we see one family member that's very obstinate about putting mom into an assisted living. It's because they've never seen an assisted living, or they're from out of town and they don't know what maybe the sister or the brother is dealing with on an everyday situation, because they're here in Louisville, they're the one that's spending time. So we really have to kind of bring those together and get on the same page. That's really what I do, is I try to play an advocate for both and understanding where everybody's coming from. And that's the best way to do it.
And I would imagine that focusing everybody on the person who's the focal point, the parent or sister or whatever, and focusing on their best interest and trying to get everybody else to look in that way is probably helpful.
It's very helpful. And I can give an example. I had a family that really didn't want mom moving. So this is what we did. One family member says, mom can still drive. Well, we went out in the garage and that's okay. Look at every corner of this car. There was dings on all four corners. We go outside and we look at the environment outside. What do you think it needs to look like? Because the earth will take back a house or a barn. We can see that all over Kentucky. If you see an old barn, slowly taking it. In this day and age, we look at the inside of the environment, because a lot of times your environment can make you sick. I've gone in homes before and everybody thinks mom is okay. I am not snooping around your house. I'm kind of being an investigator of your house, and I'm looking at my surroundings and I see mold on the walls inside the house that I was in. I saw pills on the floor where mom or dad lived. I see dishes piled up. I see spoiled milk. So our environment can say a lot about that individual, that they are just having a hard time coping with our instrumental ADLs. Instrumental ADLs are the things that we take for granted. Dialing a phone, counting money, balancing a checkbook, reading a list to go to the grocery store, what to buy at the grocery store, knowing when things need to be taken out of the grocery store because they are bad. Those are the things that we really just do, and we don't think about them. But as we get older, some of those things can become a little bit more challenging.
You mentioned at-home care or in-home care. Sometimes a senior is not ready to go into even independent living. And I think there's probably a desire, especially amongst people that have a legacy homestead that they might have even been born in, or their parents or grandparents were born in. So there's some momentum to stay where you are. And you seem to say that you've got some services available to help a person in that stage. And then, so talk a little bit about that. And I would imagine it puts you in a good position to then help the family when they are at the next stage. And maybe they're not ready, maybe they're not emotionally ready to make a move that they should be moving, but you don't have consensus to move them to the next stage. Talk a little bit about in-home.
Well, first I'll say two things. We can't make someone do what they don't want to do. I don't find that inhumane. Second of all, I think it takes a village. When I say that, I do believe in in-home care. I have a lot of great companies out there that do a great job with in-home care. I can say that COVID has really not helped in-home care. They are struggling with labor. I think it's getting better and better. It's a very hard job. It takes a special person to become a caregiver. I don't just give my clients one in-home care. I believe you need to interview, but I also will tell my clients that want to stay home, give that in-home care that you decide to go with an opportunity. The first person that they send to you after your interview and what they think that the person that they need to send, it might not be the right fit. That's okay. That in-home care, I would say 100% of them, if you tell them the needs that you need or something didn't work out, they will fix it. They want to. They wouldn't be in the business if they didn't have compassion. I think if you look at the other side of that, even inside assisted living community, I think you can mirror that it takes 30 days to iron out some of the, what I call speed bumps, because that in-home care or that community has to get to know mom, and mom has to get to know them. You have to kind of marry each other a little bit. You have to compromise on some things. But at the end of the day, I think in-home care, if you're not ready and you want to stay in your home and you believe that you can, I'm going to do everything to abide by your wishes. But I'm here when that in-home care agency feels like they can get more eyes on them. They're at a safety type of environment, because not all of our homes are built for us. If you have an upstairs room and you have bone-to-bone knees, you can handle that for a while, but after a while, it's going to get hard to go get up into that bed. I believe we have to have sleep to be able to think about and make best decisions. I don't believe that laying on a couch, because as we get older, we can have osteoporosis, we can have underlying conditions, and when you're on a couch, that can cause more harm. So there's all kinds of circumstances that we can look at. But in-home care, absolutely. I just got off the phone with the lady that needs home care. I'm going to do everything I can to find that for her, and I do believe in it. But I also do believe in our communities too, because they can provide more activity, more socialization than staying at home, being alone. If family has to travel, they're worrying about their loved one. So we just have to kind of talk through that. And again, I'm an educator, and we're going to look at both sides.
What happens when you have the individual who doesn't have a family advocate? Now with Zoom and FaceTime, you can, if they're out of town, you can get them on the phone or get them into a call. But let's say you've got a senior that needs some services and they come to you and they don't have an advocate or a family member with them. I would imagine that's really difficult, especially if they're having some memory issues to deal with that. How do you deal with that situation?
Well, we have our Oasis team that it's Amy and I. We can take that under our wing, and we take it kind of slow. We try to get a family member. That's kind of our number one priority. And we just kind of work through the process. I love, I eventually just adopt that person. I'm going to do everything ethically, honestly. I can. We're going to try to find a safe place. But we really have to discuss, can they afford it? Do they have the means for memory care? And that's the reason why that extra family member needs to be involved. But we kind of help that individual through that process. It might not be as quick, but we can do it. I have placed several families and individuals that didn't have families into assisted living, and it worked out fine. Eventually, someone in that family steps up and helps.
Mhm. You know, our concept, our co-living concept, and I'm down in Florida at this stage, but there are a lot of senior care or senior communities that pretty much promote some of the same things and activities that we do to help people socialize, get exercise, and that leads to a topic that's really foremost in our minds, which is solving this epidemic of loneliness that preceded COVID, but has been exacerbated by COVID. Talk a little bit about that and what COVID has done to seniors, because I feel like they've been on the front edge of a lot of the suffering, and how communities, some examples of how communities work to get people to socialize and not withdraw, especially if they're having memory and physical issues.
Well, I don't think, and this is only my opinion, I don't think we'll ever see communities. Now, we're not talking nursing homes because it's a different type of topic. I don't see communities shutting out or isolating families or isolating the individuals in communities. I think now we have a playbook, we have some data. I believe we saw a lot of heartbreak, that they passed away because they were just brokenhearted. Communities do a great job on, once you come into a community, they will assign a resident that is like an ambassador, that once you move in, that person, based on the personality that we give the community to that individual, will knock on the door, invite them to dinner, show them a calendar. So it's kind of like big brother, big sister, and they're going to introduce them to the community. I don't like placing somebody, doesn't matter who they are or where they are in their health, on a Friday. I like to transition someone on a Monday or a Tuesday, because that's where the highest staff is and that's where the highest activities. So that's where we make make that they're in the right place in the community. If somebody is having a hard time walking, we want to make sure that, hey, we're going to look at the first floor. If someone is dancing down the halls, it's going to be a little bit cheaper for that individual. Maybe we'll put them on the second or third floor, and there might be somebody that loves bingo or needs a little bit of help. We're going to put them to a nurse's station, or we're going to kind of put them towards the activities room. So placing somebody in the right room in the community is something that we always look at. And that's the reason why, again, we want to sit down and understand the personality of the individual that we're trying to help. I tell people, just because there is a bright and shiny chandelier that you love in that community, you're not going to call me and tell me you still like that bright and shiny chandelier. You're going to call me because mom's not getting the care that she needs. We need to look at care. Care is number one. Can we get mom at a higher level of care once she is inside a community? Can she get her needs met? And sometimes that's the best medicine, is laughter. Are we placing that person in a place where she can fit in, or that individual can fit in? So that's the reason why we're very strategic on what we do and how we adopt our families, how we engage with our families to find them the right place. So I hope it answered your question.
Yeah. In my situation, I have two brothers. In fact, you know one of them. You've met one of them, and I feel really fortunate. Our mom needed assisted living, and we really came together. And I know this isn't always the case. It does definitely takes a village, maybe a village and a half. So one of us took financial, one of us took medical, and the other took mental health, and there was some overlap there, and triaged and got her the care she needed. She happened to be, when she went in, very mobile. She was a very social person. In fact, she went from ambassador to part-time sales person, and made some commissions on bringing some people in. She actually had a healthcare background and had run a home health agency. Plus, she was just that type of gregarious personality. So we actually had a really good experience and a great care facility in Atlanta to do that. But not all families are able to pull together in those situations. And
yeah, I would like to just add to your audience. You really need to pull back on your own needs. Really listen to the person that has their eyes on the situation on an everyday. If you're from out of town and you've got a sister that's really looking after mom, I believe the sister has more education about what mom needs than anybody. I believe that it's really about mom or the individual and the care and the safety that they need to have the purpose and the quality of life that they deserve. And if that is spending all their money to do that, and there might not be anything left in the will, at least the family can go, you know what, we gave mom the best life that we could because mom gave us the best life when she raised us. And we owe that to mom. I believe that that is so important, because if mom is lonely and she can't do the things, spend some time really thinking about where she's at.
This can be and certainly has been a really serious conversation. Let's talk about some lighthearted anecdotes, because there's some funny stuff that happens in these settings. Not necessarily embarrassing. I remember my mom had someone sneak her dog in before they were formally allowing this dog to come in. So there are all sorts of humorous things that happen during the course of these situations. Can you talk about some that might come to mind?
Oh, yeah, I have a really funny
lighter note.
Oh, I have a really funny story about I got a call from two sisters. They were worried about mom. I actually met with mom too, so the four of us had a family consultation, and mom was very obstinate about going, and the two sisters. So mom wouldn't even tour with us at the time. She just kind of looked, hey, I'm not going, but you guys can go tour. And the reason why the sisters called me is because mom was calling them 6 times, 7 times a day and wanting things like go to the beauty parlor, go to the mall. Mom was kind of bored, it seemed like. And so we found the right type of community for mom. And finally, I went over and spoke to mom, and just she and I went to the community. She says, well, I don't want my daughters to know we're going, but I'll go check it out with you. So we checked it out, and it was the right community that the daughters wanted me to take her. So we had a great time. We walked into a party, and they were having this lady had a dream. She's never been to prom. So everybody was dressed up, and the lady actually that's never been to prom in her high school, she never graduated from high school. She was prom queen. We had the best time partying. We moved her in there. And the daughter, about a month, calls me and says, Jeff, what have you done? And I'm like, uh-oh, what have I done? She goes, we had to make an appointment for mom because she's so busy in activities. She says, well, I don't have time today, maybe tomorrow. Give me a call because I got this, and this to go to. And we're having tea in my room with 4 other ladies. And I've got to get some crumpets and some desserts down from the chef, and he's going to help us. And that was the best news. And today I still see her in the community, and she just has the biggest smile on her face. Every time I walk in that I see her, she gives me the biggest hug. So that's a really funny story that I can remember lately. I do have a lady I've been working with for 3 years. We kind of went through with her husband. Her husband had dementia and he passed away, and she's just a lovely, every time we tour, and now she's ready. She is called me up last week or a month ago or whatever, I can't remember, but we're starting to tour, and she comes and she dresses to the nines on these tours, and she asks all the questions, and she just looks at me and she says, I just can't wait, and I'm going to make a decision in March, and where I'm going to sell my house, and I just can't wait to get into a community. So she's gotten from where she didn't want to go. She was a caregiver for a husband, and now he's passed away. She realizes that she just needs some socialization. So now it's just so much fun to tour with her because of the excitement. And we have about 3 more to go, and then she's going to make a decision. But she's going to do very well in her community. Wherever she goes, she'll be the highlight of the whole community.
So we've covered a lot of ground, and I've learned a lot and appreciate hearing all this. Are there any things that you haven't mentioned or that I haven't asked you that you think is important for people to know if they're dealing with family members? And I think almost everybody will have to deal with a family member in this situation. Anything that you haven't shared that you'd like to?
Well, I'd like to share that, as we grow older, we plan for our future. But I don't see that we plan with mom and dad. I think people are so afraid to talk about that next step. I think we have to talk. Not saying that you're going into a community, but call me into that family consultation. Let's talk about mom's wishes or dad's wishes. Let's talk about what it looks like, because we don't know what that individual has seen when they were younger. Assisted living has changed so much that I rather see us plan, understand where we're going, be educated. So when the time is right, we're not going in there blind. We're not going into a crisis type moment. If mom falls and goes into the hospital, I don't want my clients for their family to make the decision for their parents. I want the parents to have that voice. So when the time comes, the family kind of knows what mom and dad. So that's really what I want to add is call me in. Like I said, I've been working with a lady for 3.5 years. She's more educated than I am because I've spent so much time with her. But now she understands it and she's excited. She's ready to have that quality of life. She wants people to serve her dinner, and so she doesn't have to clean the dishes anymore. She doesn't want to vacuum her, and she doesn't want to have to worry about how I'm going to cut the grass. But her daughters are involved, and it's so much fun to see them interact with mom. And it's so funny, they call her mommy, and I think that's so cute. But now they're doing it together. Everybody's on the same page because mom's making a decision or dad's making a decision. Let's plan, just like we've planned for our kids' college, we've planned for our retirement, we plan for the next car or the next home. We need to plan with mom and dad what their wishes and make sure that these things are laid out, like the will, the POAs, living wills. We have to discuss it because, we're not guaranteed to live here forever either.
No, it's just the opposite, guarantee.
Yeah.
And that way also, just to feed into that, if you see that there's a shortfall, then there's something you can do about it if you're starting early. And a lot of times, and this is where an elder care attorney can come in, there are things that you can do to move pieces of the puzzle around so that they can preserve some of their wealth and be able to pass it along if that's what they wish to do.
Absolutely. Families need to understand where mom and dad are financially, because we don't know. If we don't know something, then it's hard to help somebody when a crisis happens. And
there are certain things, certain financial steps that you can't do 3 months before they go into a facility. It has to be done well before.
Yeah, I mean, there's some fiduciaries like Merrill Lynch and some of these big institutions that house our stocks and different things. Sometimes you sharing a POA with them, saying, "Hey, I have a POA." A lot of times you need to talk to your fiduciary and say, "We have a POA. What do we need to sign if we ever need to get a hold of mom and dad's money if a crisis happens?" That needs to be an education with your wealth advisor. So that's another step.
So are you able to provide services to people outside of the Louisville area, or are you pretty much limited? So who should be reaching out to you if they have a situation like this? What kind of radius? Do you help people out of state? Do you make referrals? Talk a little bit about that.
So I can give you an example that we just did last week. Yes, to your question, we have over 100 franchisees across the country. It is growing really rapidly within our franchise. And I'm probably interviewing 3 or 4 of those potential franchisees every month. And I had an incident that my daughter plays lacrosse at Grand Valley State University in Michigan. She has a roommate that lives, and her parents live in Columbus, Ohio. Her dad called me about his stepdad, and we provided services because we have another franchisee that was actually in his back door. And he basically told me this weekend, because I saw him, what a great service that you have provided us. We are with an Oasis advisor in our area. We are getting more options than we ever thought we could. The second part of your question is, we do concentrate in Louisville and Southern Indiana, but I have helped families in a deeper part of Kentucky. Zoom is a beautiful thing if we need to. I have traveled to Lexington and have transitioned people into assisted living in Lexington. But yeah, those might be a little bit harder, but I like challenges also.
What about Florida? Do you have, would you'd refer out if they're outside of your geographic area?
Absolutely. So we'll take the information in our database, which we call our Oasis IQ, and I can absolutely do a transfer of that information to another Oasis advisor. And then that Oasis advisor would definitely meet with that individual. I do a soft transfer and a soft introduction. A lot of times it is a phone call between the 3 of us. This is what we're going to do. This is who this is, because we want to build that trust between the client and the Oasis rep. So yes, we can do that.
So if someone wants to contact you, even if it's just for advice and referral, but certainly if they're in the Louisville area, what's the best way for people to reach you?
You can call 502-631-3002. You can also go to our website, which is Oasis Senior Advisors .com/Louisville. And we do have a number, website numbers up there. You can absolutely look at what we do in depth and how we can help you. I can also say that if there's a social worker or anybody that's listening to this podcast, they can call me. There's also a referral type of sheet that is very easy to fill out if they have a referral for us. And they hit it and they can go straight to my email and we can help that individual if we need to.
Great. Well, thanks so much. We did have someone on not too long ago to talk about memory care, but we haven't discussed this before. This transition that most families will need to help their family members go through. And you've provided a wealth of information. And I can tell that you truly care about people and your clients. And that's probably the greatest and most important thing that someone in your position has is compassion and patience and a general sense of care for people.
So, I love people, and I believe that God wants us to take care of his people too.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being with us. I'll also thank everybody for tuning in. We're now doing these podcasts weekly, and we also are inviting people, just starting to invite people to join us for the conversation, ask questions on Zoom. So we'll put in the show notes a link that you can add our Thrive Co-Living podcast calendar as a Google calendar, and it's an overlay with your calendar so that you can see who we're interviewing each week and join in if you like, or you can certainly tune in or dial in on the podcast on the website and see the recording. But Jeff, thanks again for being with us, and thanks everybody for joining in. Thanks for joining us for another great episode of the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. To learn more about our mission and how you can support our vision of creating co-living communities worldwide, please visit us at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. To receive advanced viewings of our podcast and other exclusive content, find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Thrive Co-Living Communities. You can also learn more ways to support our mission in the show notes below. Amazon Smile, GoFundMe, Kroger, and our own Thrive Gear store, where you can buy t-shirts, hats, and many other items. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.